the wound we all carry. There is a silence inside you that no one else can hear. It began years ago when you were still soft, still hoping, still believing. Maybe it came the first time someone you trusted turned away without explanation. Maybe it began when you poured yourself out for someone and they left you empty. Maybe it started when you looked into a mirror and realized that the world only applauded when you smiled, but never when you bled. That silence never left. It became the weight you carry in your chest, the ache in your throat, the pause in your voice when you want to scream but know no one would understand. You've hidden it behind laughter. You've buried it beneath routines. But the silence has always been there, whispering the truth you've tried so hard not to face. The world does not reward tenderness. It exploits it. The world does not cradle your heart. It fractures it again and again until you wonder if you were ever meant to be gentle at all. And yet, that wound you carry, that unbearable ache, is not weakness. It is the birthplace of your strength. It is the shadow that has taught you how to see the light. It is the scar that will remind you, over and over again, that pain was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to carve you into something deeper. You're not here to play by their rules. You're not here to beg for permission to exist. You are not here to remain soft for a world that delights in breaking softness. You are here to rise from that wound. You are here to take back the power they thought they could steal. You are here to transform your silence into a language of survival, and your scars into the sharpest truth anyone has ever seen. The emotional law of power. In 2025, power doesn't look like it once did. It's no longer men in iron crowns or leaders shouting for podiums. Power has mutated. It has slipped beneath the surface into perception, into memory, into the fragile nerves of the heart. It's not about possession anymore. It's about presence. Not about dominance, but about endurance. Today, power belongs to the one who feels the deepest but refuses to collapse beneath it. Power belongs to the one who has been broken 100 times and still chooses to stand. Power belongs to the one who knows what it means to lose everything and yet keeps walking. And that is you. You who have loved and been abandoned. You who have hoped and been betrayed. You who have offered kindness and received silence. Every heartbreak has been training. Every betrayal has been a lesson. Every night you cried alone was sharpening you for this exact moment. The first rule, never give them your reaction. The truth is brutal, but must be said. The moment they see you react, they own you. The moment they know what makes you shatter, they will hold that knowledge like a weapon. And so you must learn the hardest lesson of survival. Never let them see how deeply you bleed. Not because your emotions are wrong, not because you don't feel, but because when they see your wound, they will press their fingers into it. They will poke, prod, and test, not to understand you, but to measure how much control they have over you. So the first law of emotional power is this. Guard your reaction as if it were your soul. Cry in silence. Rage in stillness. Let your tears fall only where no one else can witness. Because the moment you make your pain visible, you hand over the keys to your inner kingdom. You think expression frees you, but in a world this ruthless, expression often enslaves you. So hold your fire close to your chest. Let them wonder. Let them ache with confusion. They will try to provoke you, but your calm will terrify them more than your anger ever could. The second rule, appear stronger than you feel. You will burn. You will ache. You will want to collapse. But no matter how much your soul is trembling, the mask you wear must be one of resilience. Why? Because when you appear unshaken, they panic. When you stand tall in the middle of the storm, they crumble. Your silence will echo louder than their noise. You're not faking strength. You are practicing survival. You are rehearsing the language of endurance. And in time, it becomes real. In time, your silence stops being a mask and starts being who you are. Do not mistake stillness for weakness. Stillness is not surrender. Stillness is control. Every delay in your reaction is a sharpening of your blade. Every moment you wait before responding is another layer of power wrapping itself around your heart. The third rule: control the story with your tone. Words are cheap. Noise is everywhere. Everyone speaks, but few are heard. What people remember is not what you say, but how you say it. The calm tone, the steady breath, the quiet refusal to break. That is what unsettles them. That is what makes them question themselves. That is what places you in control. You do not need to raise your voice. You do not need to scream. In fact, the more they scream, the quieter you should become. Let your calmness become the storm that rattles their bones. From coldness to clarity. Unlike the ruthless, you are not becoming unreadable because you want to dominate. You are becoming unreadable because you refuse to be broken. This is not the death of your emotions. This is the rebirth of your strength. You still feel more deeply than anyone else. But now, you know where to place those feelings. You know when to share them. You know when to hold them back like a sacred fire, too holy for careless hands. They will call you cold. They will call you distant. They will say you have changed. Let them. They don't need to know the truth. They don't need to know that your silence is not cruelty, but survival. They don't need to know that beneath your unreadable mask lies a heart that feels everything, but no longer gives everything away. Because now you have begun the transformation. Now you're stepping into the emotional laws of power. Now you're reclaiming what they once stole, your ability to choose when, how, and to whom you give your soul. The hunger to be seen. Every way you look, people are crying out to be noticed. They don't always scream it. Sometimes it's in the way their eyes search the room when they speak, as if waiting for a spark of recognition. Sometimes it's in the way they dress, choosing colors or styles not because they like them, but because they hope someone will. Sometimes it's in the way they post online, filtering their lives into perfect fragments, praying for likes that never fill the void. This hunger is not rare. It is universal. We all want to matter. We all want to be seen. We all want someone to look into us and say, "I see who you are, and you are enough." But here's the wound. The world has learned to weaponize that hunger. It knows how badly you crave recognition. It knows how desperately you ache for approval. And so it offers you crumbs of validation in exchange for pieces of your soul. The trap of validation. From childhood, we were trained into this hunger. Teachers praised us when we obeyed. Parents rewarded us when we fit the mold. Friends loved us when we mirrored their laughter. And slowly, we learned that worth was not inherent. It was earned. But validation, like any drug, never satisfies. You chase it. You lean into it. You reshape yourself to earn it again. And the more you chase, the further you drift from yourself. They don't need chains to bind you anymore. They just need to withhold a smile. They just need to pause before clapping. They just need to fall silent after your story. And instantly, your soul bends. You feel the ache. You question your worth. You scramble to win back what they never should have owned in the first place. The fourth rule: give validation wisely. If the first laws of power were about guarding your reaction, the next are about guarding your recognition. Because just as others can control you with crumbs of praise, you can learn to control the rhythm of your own validation. The law is simple. Do not waste your approval. When you see someone shining, don't rush to applaud. When someone begs for recognition, don't always give it. Because the moment people come to expect your validation, it loses its power. Instead, offer it only when it matters. Offer it when it costs you nothing but buys you trust, closeness, or influence. Offer it rarely, so that when you do, it feels like sunlight in winter, warm, rare, unforgettable. The fifth rule: starve the hunger at the right moment. There is no silence louder than withholding recognition when someone expects it. You know this already. Think back to the time you gave everything, your best words, your most honest performance, your deepest vulnerability, and were met with nothing. No applause, no response, just absence. Didn't it haunt you? Didn't you replay it in your mind, wondering why your best was ignored? That emptiness carved itself into you, didn't it? That is the power of absence. And when used with precision, it teaches you the truth. The loudest lesson is not always spoken. The people around you expect praise. They expect support. They expect applause. When you calmly, quietly refuse to give it, they unravel. They chase. They bend. They adjust themselves, hoping to win back what once came freely. The sixth rule: support with purpose. This doesn't mean withholding all warmth. It doesn't mean turning cold forever. No, your approval must become purposeful. You will not waste it on those who drain you. You will not pour it into those who take you for granted. You will not offer it to be liked. Instead, you will give it only when it strengthens the bond you choose to build. You will clap only for those whose loyalty you need. You will encourage only when it brings you closer to the future you're shaping. This is not manipulation. This is reclamation. Because for too long, your support has been stolen by those who never deserved it. And now, it is sacred. The seventh rule: let silence become their teacher. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is not absence. Silence is presence in its sharpest form. When someone seeks your recognition and you give nothing, no applause, no approval, no nod, they begin to squirm. They begin to wonder. They begin to adjust. Soon, your silence becomes louder than their words. Soon, they begin to perform not for themselves, but for you. Soon, they begin to orbit you, desperate to crack the mystery of your approval. And in that moment, you realize the deepest truth. The one who controls recognition controls the rhythm of the room. The addiction of being seen. People are not driven by truth. They are driven by perception. And perception is always shaped by feedback. The one whose praise is rare becomes the sun. The one whose silence is sharp becomes the mirror. And the one who balances between recognition and withholding becomes the axis around which others rotate. But this power only lasts if you detach. If you yourself still crave applause, if you yourself still hunger to be seen, then you remain enslaved. Because the one who dances for validation can never command it. So here's the painful truth. You must learn to live without recognition. You must learn to survive without applause. You must learn to breathe without their approval. Only then does your presence become magnetic. Only then do people bend themselves to you instead of the other way around. The wound beneath the craving. But why does this matter so deeply? Why does validation cut so sharply? Because beneath every hunger to be seen is the wound of having been invisible. That child who raised their hand in class and was ignored. That friend who poured their heart out and was met with silence. That partner who gave love and received indifference. We carry those wounds like ghosts. We build our lives around them, forever trying to heal the pain of invisibility. And the world knows it. The world uses it. The world profits from it. But you will not. You will not let that wound control you anymore. You will not let it dictate your worth. You will not let it drive you into the arms of anyone who dangles recognition like a chain. From wound to weapon. So what do? You transform. You take that wound and you sharpen it into wisdom. You turn the hunger into clarity. You will no longer crave to be seen. You will become the one who sees. You will no longer beg for approval. You will decide who is worthy of yours. You will no longer collapse at silence. You will master it as your sharpest tool. Because in the end, Power does not belong to the one who is applauded the loudest. Power belongs to the one whose approval shapes the applause of everyone else. The power of listening to wounds. Most people believe strength is proven by how loudly they speak. They measure their worth by how much space they take up in a room, how much their voice echoes, how quickly they can dominate the conversation. But the truth is softer, more painful, and far more dangerous. People reveal their deepest truths not when they shout, but when they whisper. Not when they stand tall, but when they tremble. Not when they are asked, but when they are heard. The greatest power you will ever hold is not in the words you speak, but in the silence you keep when others pour their wounds into your hands. The 8th rule: listen more than you speak. You've seen it before. Someone sits across from you, their words tumbling out in nervous rhythm. At first, they tell you small things, complaints about their day, memories that seem unimportant, stories they've told 100 times. But as the silence stretches, as you refuse to interrupt, as you simply let them exist in your presence, something happens. Their guard slips. Their words grow heavier. Their eyes soften. And then it comes, the confession. The detail they swore they'd never tell. The scar they've hidden for years. The pain they've disguised with jokes. And all you did was listen. Listening is not passive. It is the most active form of power there is. Because when people feel safe enough to speak, they give you what no force could take, their truth. The 9th rule: ask questions that unlock pain. But listening is not enough. Sometimes silence must be guided. If you want to see the soul of a person, you don't ask about their victories. You ask about the shadows that trail behind them. You don't ask what they're proud of. You ask what keeps them awake at night. Not directly, never aggressively. Always with softness, always with patience. When they speak of ambition, you ask of failure. When they speak of anger, you ask of their father. When they speak of longing, you ask of loss. Every question is a doorway. Every pause is an invitation. Every glance is permission. And slowly, they step through, revealing what they thought they'd buried. The 10th rule: mirror empathy without losing yourself. The easiest way into a human heart is through empathy. A tilted head, a softened voice, a pause that says, "I understand." But here lies the danger. In mirroring empathy, you must never lose your center. You're not their therapist. You are not their savior. You are the recorder of their truths. Your role is not to carry their pain, but to witness it, to hold it carefully in your silence, not because you wish to harm them, but because you know that knowledge, any knowledge, is power. It is not cruelty to listen. It is clarity. It is not coldness to stay detached. It is survival. Why confession matters? Why does confession hold so much weight? Because human beings are addicted to release. Most people carry their wounds like heavy stones in their chest. They ache to put them down, to place them in someone else's hands, even for a moment. They confuse that relief with trust. They confuse your listening with love. But the truth is simpler. People reveal themselves not because you earned their trust, but because they needed to be unburdened. And every time they do, they hand you a key. The 11th rule: hold their secrets, but never forget them. This is not about cruelty. This is not about using pain to destroy. This is about remembering. Because every secret, every trembling confession, every whisper of shame they share with you is a map of who they really are. It tells you what drives them. It tells you what breaks them. It tells you what they will run toward and what they will run from. Do not weaponize it immediately. That is the mistake of the cruel. The true strategist waits. The true survivor keeps those secrets sealed until the day comes when knowing them matters. You are not storing pain for vengeance. You are storing it for clarity. Because to know the wounds of others is to see beneath their mask. The nature of human weakness. The world will tell you to wear your heart on your sleeve, to be open, to share, to express. And yes, openness feels healing. But here is the darker truth. Most people who listen do not truly care. They listen for themselves. They listen to compare, to feel superior, to gossip later. Very few listen to hold. Very few listen to honor. And because of that, most confessions turn into vulnerabilities waiting to be exposed. If you do not guard your own truths, they will be taken from you. If you do not choose carefully who hears your heart, you will be shattered by your own openness. The 12th rule: learn the discipline of disappearance. Absence is not abandonment. Absence is presence magnified. When you disappear at the peak of someone's dependence, their mind spirals. They replay every word they told you. They wonder what you're doing with their secrets. They imagine you speaking their truths to others. Your silence becomes the loudest noise they've ever heard. And in that silence, they reveal even more. They message, they call, they reach out. They seek explanations, apologies, closure. And every attempt gives you more data, more clarity, more proof of how deeply they depend on you. The discipline of disappearance is not cruelty. It is rhythm. You do not vanish to harm. You vanish to watch. You vanish to see what remains when your presence is removed. The 13th rule: return only on your terms. If you leave, you must also master return. You cannot reappear when they expect you. You cannot return when your heart aches. You cannot crawl back in weakness. You reappear only when balance has tilted back in your favor. Only when your silence has carved enough weight into their memory that they crave your presence more than they resent your absence. This rhythm, appearing, vanishing, returning, is not about games. It is about control of your energy. It is about teaching others that your presence is not free, not guaranteed, not to be taken for granted. Pain as a teacher. Here is the truth no one wants to face. Pain is not an enemy. Pain is the most honest teacher you will ever have. When people confess to you, they hand you their curriculum. They show you what life has already taught them. They show you the lessons they still haven't learned. And if you are wise, you will watch. You will listen. You will absorb. Because their wounds are not just theirs. They are mirrors. They show you the universality of hurt. They remind you that everyone bleeds. Everyone aches. Everyone longs. And once you know that, you stop being afraid of your own wounds. From wounds to wisdom. The deeper you listen, the more you learn that power is not about forcing your will. It is about understanding. And the deepest understanding comes from pain. When you know someone's pain, you know their choices. When you know someone's scars, you know their future. When you know someone's secrets, you hold a map of their soul. But never forget this. The same is true of you. Guard your confessions. Protect your heart. Do not hand over your wounds to those who have not earned the right to hold them. Your pain is not weakness. It is treasure, and treasure must be protected. The weight of betrayal. Betrayal is not rare. It is not an accident. It is not even a surprise if we are honest with ourselves. Betrayal is a constant thread in human life, a shadow hiding behind promises, a fracture always waiting beneath the illusion of loyalty. What makes it sting is not that it happens, but that we allow ourselves to believe it won't. We all know the feeling, the phone call that never came, the friend who stood silent when you needed them most, the lover who promised forever but left when the storm arrived. And when it comes, betrayal burns deeper than anger, because anger passes, but betrayal shakes the foundation. It asks the most painful question of all: was it ever real? The 14th rule: demand stillness, not fire. The instinct after betrayal is to erupt, to confront, to scream, to demand answers. But fire burns quickly and leaves you empty. Stillness, however, collects everything. when you are betrayed. The greatest strength is not reaction, but restraint. Watch. Document. Let them believe you are blind. Let them believe they have fooled you. Because in their comfort, they will reveal even more. Silence here is not surrender. It is patience. It is strategy. The 15th rule, pretend you do not see. This is the hardest lesson of all. To pretend you are blind while your heart rages with knowledge. It feels unbearable to smile when you know the knife has already been planted, to nod when you see the fracture forming, to laugh when you know the loyalty is false. But this pretense is your weapon. The longer you hold it, the more they relax, the more they reveal, the more evidence they give, the more data you gather. Betrayal is not an ending. It is information. And the one who sees but pretends not to will always know more than the one who thinks they are hidden. The 16th rule, wait until they forget. This is where most fall. They strike back too soon. They let their rage dictate their timing. But power is not in reaction. Power is in delay. Let the betrayal fade in their mind. Let them believe they are safe. Let them convince themselves you never noticed or that you forgave. Because when people think they've escaped consequence, they stop guarding themselves. They return to comfort. And in comfort, they are most vulnerable. Patience is not weakness. Patience is the sharpening of the blade. The 17th rule, punish once with precision. When a moment finally arrives, do not waste it on noise. Do not scatter your energy across small cuts. Strike once, quietly, precisely, irreversibly. This is not cruelty. This is necessity. Because the human heart is strange. It can survive 1,000 small wounds, but cannot recover from one that cuts to the bone. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote, men should either be treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries. For heavy ones, they cannot. Translated into your life, this means do not waste your time with petty retribution. If you must act, act in a way that leaves no room for retaliation. Act in a way that leaves them unable to stand. Act in a way that closes the chapter forever. The 18th rule, do not strike from emotion. Here lies the temptation to punish because you are hurt. But emotion clouds the blade. Emotion makes you sloppy. You do not strike because you are wounded. You strike because you have waited, because you have studied, because you have chosen the perfect moment. This is the difference between cruelty and clarity. Cruelty lashes out to relieve itself. Clarity waits until the punishment becomes a lesson they will never forget. The 19th rule, turn betrayal into data. But perhaps the deepest law is this. Betrayal is not the end of trust. It is the revelation of truth. Every betrayal shows you who people really are, who hesitated when you needed them, who defended you without being asked, who went silent when courage was required. Each moment is a map, a chart of loyalty, a blueprint of the souls around you. And once you have this map, you cannot unsee it. You no longer imagine loyalty where it does not exist. You no longer project love where only convenience lived. You no longer beg for commitment where silence reigns. Betrayal does not weaken you. It clarifies you. The pain that sharpens. Do not think of betrayal as a scar you must hide. Think of it as a whetstone sharpening the edge of your soul. Each wound you've suffered has taught you something. Each silence that cut you has shown you the truth. Each false smile has whispered a warning. And the more you learn to see betrayal not as devastation, but as revelation, the freer you become. Because then you no longer fear it. You expect it. You study it. You let it reveal the hidden structure of relationships. What is real and what was only ever an illusion. The 20th rule, remember, but do not dwell. The temptation after betrayal is to replay it endlessly, to rehearse the pain in your mind until it becomes your entire identity. But memory is a tool, not a prison. You remember not to stay wounded, but to stay wise. You carry the scar not to keep bleeding, but to recognize the blade when it returns. The lesson of betrayal is not bitterness. It is clarity, the quiet after the storm. The strangest thing about betrayal is this. It makes you stronger than you ever were before. Because once you survive it, you know you can survive it again. Once you see the truth, you can never be fooled the same way twice. Once you walk through the fire, you stop fearing the flame. And so, betrayal, though it feels like death, is really rebirth. It destroys the illusion, but it gives you the sight. It breaks your trust, but it rebuilds your strength. It cracks your heart, but it teaches you the architecture of loyalty. From betrayal to mastery. This is the transformation. You no longer waste energy confronting every betrayal. You no longer waste tears on those who were never loyal. You no longer waste rage on those unworthy of your fire. Instead, you watch. You learn. You wait. And when you act once, cleanly, decisively, finally. And then you move forward, not as someone broken, but as someone sharpened. Not as someone naive, but as someone unshakable. Not as someone bitter, but as someone who has transformed betrayal into wisdom. The masks we wear. The world does not reward authenticity. It rewards perception. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, especially for those who feel deeply. Because if you are honest, if you are open, if you bare your soul raw before others, you will often find yourself met not with honor, but with exploitation. Most people cannot carry your truth. They will not hold it. They will not protect it. Instead, they will use it, twist it, or flee from it. And so the deepest pain of being human is realizing that you cannot show your true self to everyone. But here is the paradox. The mask you wear is not always a lie. Sometimes it is the only way to protect what is real. The 21st rule, master emotional puppetry. The greatest manipulators in history were not those who roared like monsters. They were the ones who appeared harmless. The warm smile, the gentle nod, the soft laugh at the right moment, the well-timed sigh of empathy. These small, practiced gestures disarm faster than any weapon. Because when you seem safe, people stop guarding themselves. This is not cruelty, this is survival. You're not deceiving because you want to harm. You are deceiving because the world punishes those who are too real. When you show pain, you appear fragile. When you show strength, you appear threatening. But when you mirror the emotions others want to see, you blend in. You lower defenses. You're allowed access to spaces you'd never reach if you showed your full depth. The illusion of vulnerability. Think of the times you've pretended to be weaker than you were. The times you let someone believe you needed their guidance. The times you softened your voice, not because you were fragile, but because you knew it would ease their guard. That was not weakness. That was strategy. To appear vulnerable is not to be powerless. It is to use the illusion of powerlessness as a shield. It is to let others underestimate you, so that they never prepare for the storm inside you. The 22nd rule. Keep your inner life invisible. Every human being has machinery within. The constant spinning of thoughts, fears, calculations, hopes. But the moment others glimpse that machinery, they begin to manipulate it. They learn what makes you tick. They learn what silences you crave, what affirmations you hunger for, what fears make you hesitate. That is why the strongest souls appear simple, ordinary, approachable, harmless. They are not, but they allow you to believe they are. The mask is not a lie. It is a filter. You let others see only what you choose. You let them project whatever comforts them. You let them believe you are safe, because once they believe that, they stop guarding against you. And beneath that mask, your core remains untouched. The 23rd rule, let them see themselves in you. When people look at you, They're not searching for who you are. They're searching for reflections of themselves. And so, when you speak, give them pieces of their own language. When you smile, let it echo their joy. When you nod, let it mirror their truth. This is not about dishonesty. This is about resonance. People do not fall in love with what they cannot recognize. They fall in love with the familiar. They fall in love with their reflection. And if you learn to become that mirror carefully without losing yourself, you will never be forgotten. The power of underestimation. The most dangerous enemy is the one no one suspects. The most powerful presence is the one people dismiss. When you allow yourself to appear ordinary, people lower their defenses. They speak freely around you. They confess their secrets. They show you their shadows. And in that underestimation, you gain freedom. Freedom to observe without suspicion. Freedom to move without resistance. Freedom to act without warning. The world fears the predator it can see, but it never prepares for the one disguised as a lamb. The 24th rule: never show all of yourself. There is a sacred part of you that must always remain unseen. No matter how much they beg for it, no matter how much they claim to deserve it, no matter how much you long to share it, keep it hidden. Because the moment they believe they have touched the deepest part of you, they will lose respect. They will stop searching. They will stop valuing what they think they own. Mystery is not manipulation. Mystery is survival. It is the invisible armor that keeps your soul from being dismantled by careless hands. The illusion of connection. Human beings crave connection more than anything else. They want to feel seen, heard, understood. And when you give them that illusion, when you let them believe you've revealed yourself, when you echo their emotions back to them, they fall into the deepest bond imaginable. But here is the secret. You have not revealed yourself at all. You have given them a version of connection, a surface, a reflection, and that is enough for them to believe. They will walk away thinking they have touched your soul, but your soul will still be yours. The 25th rule: be unreadable. When people can predict you, they can protect themselves from you. When they can map your thoughts, they can plan against you. But when you remain unreadable, they are forever off balance. They never know whether you are planning or forgiving, plotting or retreating. Unreadability is not coldness. It is power. It is the refusal to hand over your map. The balance of the mask. Does this mean you must live forever behind walls? No. It means you must learn balance. To know when to reveal and when to conceal. To know when to express and when to remain silent. To know when to mirror and when to vanish. Because the mask is not about becoming someone else. It is about protecting the deepest part of who you are. The tragedy is that most people hand away their truth too easily. They mistake connection for intimacy, validation for love, confession for safety. And in doing so, they lose the one thing that should always remain theirs, their inner life. But not you. You will learn to guard it. You will learn to protect it. You will learn to let the world see only what you choose. And in doing so, you will move through life not as someone desperate to be understood, but as someone impossible to be controlled. The final mask. In the end, the most powerful presence is the one who wears the mask so well that others stop questioning it. They will love you for your warmth. They will admire you for your kindness. They will trust you for your empathy. They will never suspect the stillness beneath it. And that is where your strength will live. In the quiet, in the unreadable, in the core no one can touch. Because you are not here to be loved or feared. You are here to be untouchable. And the untouchable are always underestimated until it's too late. The final manifesto. There comes a moment in every life when the world stops asking politely. It stops pretending to care about your softness, your hope, your open hands. It begins to test you with silence, betrayal, abandonment, and loss. Not because you deserved it, but because this is the shape of existence. And when that moment comes, you are faced with a choice. Do you collapse beneath it, or do you rise from it? The average person is taught to collapse. They are taught to beg for inclusion, to crave applause, to smooth their edges until they disappear. They are taught that to survive is to belong, that to be loved is to be safe, that to be seen is to be whole. But you know better now. You know belonging is a cage. You know applause is a leash. You know visibility can be a trap. The 26th rule: separation brings clarity. The further you drift from the crowd, the clearer the world becomes. From the outside, you can see the patterns. You can see the illusions. You can see how people destroy themselves chasing recognition, how they sacrifice their truth for attention, how they bleed their worth into the hands of others who never cared. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Separation hurts at first. It feels like exile. It feels like loneliness. But slowly, you realize it is freedom. It is the silence that sharpens. It is the distance that clarifies. It is the solitude that rebirths you. The 27th rule: power lives in stillness. The world will tell you power lives in dominance, in control, in wealth, in titles. But look deeper, and you'll see the truth. Power lives in stillness. Stillness is what terrifies them. Stillness is what unravels them. Stillness is what gives you the space to calculate, to breathe, to become untouchable. Noise is fragile. Noise is desperate. Noise is a plea to be noticed. But stillness? Stillness is unshakable. Stillness needs nothing. Stillness is enough. The 28th rule: pain is not an enemy. You've been taught to run from pain, to hide it, to numb it, to bury it under distraction, indulgence, or denial. But every wound you carry, every scar you hide, every heartbreak you endured, each one is a blade carved into your soul. And though it cut you deeply, it also sharpened you. Pain does not destroy. Pain reveals. It shows you what matters. It strips away illusion. It teaches you resilience. The ones who spend their lives avoiding pain never evolve. They remain fragile, forever fleeing the shadows. But the ones who let pain carve them open, who sit with the ache until it reshapes them, those are the ones who rise unbreakable. The 29th rule: never apologize for your edge. You will be told you are too much, too cold, too distant, too intense, too unreadable. But understand this: those words do not mean you are wrong. They mean you are untouchable. They mean others cannot control you. They mean you no longer bend to the expectations of those who wish to keep you small. Your edge is not a flaw. Your edge is your survival. And anyone who cannot stand its sharpness is simply someone who benefited when you were soft. The 30th rule: the final transformation. By now, you have seen what power really is. It is not in shouting, but in silence. Not in being loved, but in being unshakable. Not in belonging, but in standing apart. The final transformation is this: you stop needing to explain. You stop needing to prove. You stop needing to defend. You become unreadable. Not because you are hiding, but because you no longer owe anyone access to your inner world. And in that unreadability, you find peace. You find clarity. You find a strength that no betrayal, no silence, no abandonment can touch. The closing truth. So here is what you must carry forward. Never give them your reaction. Guard it like your soul. Never waste your validation. Offer it with purpose, not desperation. Never reveal your deepest wounds to careless hands. Listen more than you speak. Never punish from emotion. Strike once with precision, only when the moment is right. Never reveal your core, where the mask, but keep your truth sacred. Never apologize for the distance you've chosen. Separation is your sanctuary. You are not cruel. You are not heartless. You are not broken. You are transformed. Because power was never about being feared. Power was never about being loved. Power was about being untouchable. And untouchable you have become. The epilogue, the silent rebirth. One day, they will look at you and whisper that you've changed. They will say you are colder, sharper, quieter, harder to read. But what they will not understand is that this was never about becoming less human. It was about becoming whole. It was about refusing to scatter yourself into the hands of those who never knew how to hold you. It was about reclaiming every piece of your soul they thought they could take. And now you stand before them not as a victim, not as a follower, not as someone desperate to be seen, but as someone who has seen it all and still chosen to rise. You no longer fear betrayal because you have learned its lessons. You no longer fear silence because you have mastered its rhythm. You no longer fear invisibility because you have become your own witness. This is the final truth. You were never meant to be like them. You were meant to surpass them. You were meant to walk through fire and emerge steel. You were meant to lose everything and still remain whole. You were meant to become the storm they never saw coming. And now you are.